Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Bledsoe. I'm the Student Engagement and Communications Manager at the American Indian College Fund. I want to welcome all of you to our event today to talk about a new scholarship and fellowship opportunity specifically related to boarding school survivors and their descendants. I want to thank all of you for attending. If you do want to share any information or ask questions, you can put that into the chat. And we will later in the event actually be answering any specific questions that we have, but we want to start our event off in the right way. We've asked our Vice President of Programs here at the American Indian College Fund, Emily Whitehat, to open us with a prayer and reflection.
Emily Whitehat imachiapi, nahala ko chajeki na pewashtewi, iuhan chatewashtea na bechu zapi. Naha sichangu makoche imataha, naha ashkegu ipi, itawa ukshto. My name is Emily Whitehat, and as David mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Programs, and I greet you all with a good heart and a handshake. I'm a citizen of the Sichangu Lakota Nation, and I come from the Ashke Gluipi Tioshbai. I'll begin with a short prayer. Tungashila wakataka, tatea dopa na unchimaka tungashila. We give thanks for another good day, Tungashila, a good day for us to move forward on our path in this life, Tungashila. We want to ask our ancestors and our relatives who were all in boarding schools and who have all gone before us to continue to support us and to guide us in our work and in our education. We ask for support for our relatives, Tungashila, that are struggling today, that they get the help that they need. And we ask that our world continue to heal from COVID-19, Tungashila. We give thanks for all the support that we have, Midakie Oyasi. My father and his older siblings were all part of the boarding school system at the St. Francis Indian Mission, and their experiences were not great. And they shared what they could, which wasn't always everything in their lives. And so we know that we have a lot of healing in our communities that we continue to do. This summer, my family is hopeful that we'll finally be able to bring home the remains of one of my Unchi, my grandmother's sisters, that died at boarding school in Pennsylvania. And so as we prepare for that as a family, to be able to close that circle and to be able to finally put her to rest, we're thankful for all of those individuals that continue to bring awareness. It's our responsibility as descendants and as relatives to be able to share the experiences that our families have endured through this time and through this trauma, but it's also our responsibility to heal and to continue to learn and to do what we can to resolve the trauma in our communities and in our families. We do this because we don't want our future generations to carry this burden. And we all believe that education is really a path to healing as well. So I thank you for your time today. Thank you, Christine, for the great work that you've been doing, for David, the work that you've been doing with Student Success Services, and I look forward to scholars that will carry on the good work from this webinar. Kalamayape.
Thank you very much, Emily, for that, for those words. Well, I want us to get started with Christine, as Emily mentioned, the CEO of the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. They are the ones who have made this scholarship and fellowship opportunity possible. The American Indian College Fund is administering the scholarship as a part of our normal full circle scholarship opportunity, which the application is open right now for the next or the upcoming school year, the 2021-2022. But please let me welcome, or please help me to welcome Christine McCleave, who's the CEO of the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, to talk about this scholarship, why this scholarship is available, and a little bit more about how it came to be.
Miigwech, David and Emily. Buju, Dinawai, Magiduk, Dindisi, Indigenakaz, Makinakwaju, Indunjiba, Mikizi, and Dudame. Greetings, my relatives. My name is Dindisi, which means Blue Jay, and I am Turtle Mountain Anishinaabe, and I am Eagle Clan. And very excited to talk to you today about this scholarship and fellowship opportunity that we have created. It's two separate programs, and so we'll be focusing on the scholarship program today, but there is also a fellowship program. You can get more information on our website at boardingschoolhealing.org. We wanted to create this program for several reasons. Similar to what Emily said, we believe that education is the key to advancing our tribal nations, to closing the racial disparities that we have around wealth and health and education. And as a boarding school descendant myself, it took me 8 years to finish my undergraduate degree. And because I was doing it part-time, I didn't get any scholarships. And then when I finally moved on to get my master's degree, I found that there was a lot of scholarships out there to support my education. And I just really want, us to do what we can to support all of you awesome students out there. So we wanted to support education also because of the legacy of education, Indian education in this country, that, as part of the treaty negotiations in exchange for the land, provide education for our nations, this government in this country created a policy that brought about these assimilative, basically genocidal boarding schools. And, this was in exchange for the land. They gave us some medical and some health and this education that was really used as a weapon against us. And so we've come into the self-determination era, and many are saying we're now in a truth-telling era, truth and reconciliation, or whatever you want to call it, truth and healing. And as part of that, we are taking back those legacies and we're changing the narrative, we're rewriting the story. And so this is a really exciting opportunity for us to take Indian education and make it our own and to do something positive with it. The other piece regarding to the fellowships, so the scholarship is for graduate or undergraduate students. The fellowship are for graduate students only, and it's specifically to support research around boarding school experiences, history, impacts, and healing. So what we're finding, of course, is that a lot of times academia is not decolonized enough in the stories that it's telling about American Indian history, about Indigenous peoples. A lot of time it's non-Indigenous people doing the research and telling our stories. And so specifically the fellowship program, we wanted to support Native researchers doing the research about our people, our own people. So that's kind of where our motivation comes from.
That's great. Thank you so much, Christine. And I know it's a great honor for the College Fund to be able to administer and bring this to so many Native students and descendants of boarding school survivors. If anyone has specific questions, you can put those in the chat, but I want to get into just a part to talk specifically about how the application works and what portion we've added specifically for these scholarship opportunities. So I'm going to share my screen. And as I had mentioned just a moment ago, the application for these opportunities is a part of our Full Circle Scholarship, which is the main scholarship program for Native students from the American Indian College Fund. Like I said, that is open right now. The application for the next school year, the 2021-2022 school year, and the deadline for that is just over a month away on May 31st. So if you are interested in applying for this opportunity, it is important to take this information and put it into practice as quickly as possible. I did want to mention very quickly what our normal eligibility requirements are in addition to the requirements for this boarding school scholarship, and that is you must be a U.S. citizen, you must be a tribal member or descendant of a state or federally recognized tribe, you must have a 2.0 GPA, and you must be attending a nonprofit accredited school in the United States. You must also be a full-time student. However, there is not a financial need connected to the scholarship opportunity. A lot of people think that. And the picture that you see here is of our main scholarship page. If you go to collegefund.org, you can apply there, and I'll provide just a little more information about that. Now, our way that our application works is there's two sections. The first is a profile, and the second is the actual application for the scholarship. So if you've never applied for a scholarship with the College Fund before, you'll eventually get to a page just like this where you'll either create a profile or you'll assign into your existing profile for your application. Now in the profile section, we're collecting a lot of kind of detailed information, name, date of birth, things of that nature. But this is also the section where you will provide the information if you are a descendant of a boarding school survivor. And I'm going to show you that real quickly right now. So there will be two parts. The first will be just a radial button where you'll click yes or no as to if you are a descendant. And then if you do collect that, you'll have a part to put in an essay there to describe more about your relations to that boarding school survivor and about their experience. And obviously, the information that you have is not going to be the same for everyone. So I just want to go over this with you real quick. It's a maximum of 500 words. We would ask that you explain your parent, grandparent, or guardian's boarding school experience and how it impacted them and their descendants, which would be you if you're applying. Identify what boarding school they attended, and if possible, what years or approximate years. And we know that not everyone's going to have the same information, so give us as much as you can. And then there's a few other things we'd like you to consider and to tell us about in this essay. Did they have a good experience or a negative one at their boarding school? Did they speak their tribal language before they went to boarding school? And were they allowed to speak it there? How did they feel when they came back from boarding school? How did things change for them? How has their boarding school experience affected you and your family? And like I said, depending on your relations and how much information you have gotten, it's going to be different for everyone, and we have an appreciation for that. One of the good things about this section, in the profile section, is you can update this at any time. So if you want to go in there and put in information and go back and put in information, that's fine. You can change that. However, the profile is separate from the actual application for Full Circle. So be sure that you have this completed before you move on to the Full Circle application, because once you start the Full Circle application, you cannot go in and make edits to that. So hopefully this is providing you the information that you need as far as this one section. This is the only addition that we've added specifically for this requirement. Now, when you finish your application, you'll have a dashboard here, and it will tell you if your Full Circle scholarship is submitted. Also, if you're attending a tribal college as well, it would also tell you that information as well too. It will be in a pending status until the end of July when we actually do awarding. So if it says pending, that means that you've successfully completed. As it says here at the bottom, there will be a notification if there's any omissions from your profile to kind of prompt you to fill things in. But it's a pretty basic process. We have great support staff by email, website, social media, and phone that can help you with completion. Another thing I will tell you, there are some additional resources for you to complete the Full Circle application on our website at that collegefund.org. Right there, scholarships, there's a application FAQ page and tips page. We have a walkthrough video that walks you through the entire Full Circle application, which we won't go through right here. So there's many resources in addition to our staff. And you can reach out to us on our social media pages at Native Pathways on all these different platforms, as well as the email and the 800 number that you see below. We're going to post those into the chat right now, as well as a link directly to our application, the application link to our scholarships page. That's a lot of technical information. Hopefully you'll have some additional questions that we can answer. But one of the things I wanted to share is about our tribal colleges and the connection that they have with our Native communities in and on reservations. We've invited a representative from White Earth Tribal College, Tribal and Community College, excuse me. They did a project within the last year or two, specifically onboarding school healing. And I wanted them to share their information with us about their project. Let me check just a moment. I don't see our panelist from, oh, there's Jim. I'm going to bring Jim on. Hold on just a minute. Jim Uran from White Earth Tribal College. So give me just a moment and I will bring him onto our stage. Okay, let me welcome Jim. Jim is a cultural coordinator at White Earth Tribal College. And as I mentioned, they undertook a boarding school healing event and some other additional education pieces within the last 2 years. I wanted them to share about that and how that also connected them to their community, because like I said, our tribal colleges are a tremendous resource for those on and near reservations to access higher education.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did have the what we called the boarding school healing project, and it was September 18th, 2019 when it was. It was put together with actually would be my supervisor, Lisa Bruner, is who did this. I was not part of it. I wasn't even employed here yet, but she did fill me in on some of the healing that was taking place there, and it sounded great. You know, there was. Do I have the ability to share? I do. I want to show you part of the displays and stuff that she had. Okay, let's take a look here. And this was done right right on our campus here in Mahnomen, Minnesota, on the White Earth Indian Reservation. There was pictures from some of the major boarding schools like Carlisle, Flandreau, and even the one here in White Earth that was established in 1871. So that was established before Carlisle and Flandreau. She consulted elders, right, on the best way to go about this, and realize that, well, it is a painful process to bring back some of these memories, even though we didn't experience them ourselves. Our parents, our grandparents, were impacted. So obviously it impacted us also, to this day. They made medicine bags, okay, to deal with some of that grief, using our native medicines, asema, tobacco, cedar, sage, and sweetgrass. Let me go back here. Like I said, this was right here on campus, and she figured between 70 and 80 people took part in that. It was from like 5:30 p.m. and it lasted till 8 o'clock. There was a feast. Traditional foods were offered: deer meat, wild rice, hominy, that kind of stuff. She described in detail one elder in particular that was having a hard time. She could tell that there were some pent up emotions, and that she went and talked to him, and he said that I think he said his grandpa was at Carlisle, and she's like, well, I've got a lot of information, a lot of names right here on this Carlisle display, maybe I'll run into it. And sure enough, he did, which was really cool. And that Carlisle, that was in Pennsylvania. what else did she run across? She had originally, like, one of her plans was to show that movie Indian Horse. I bet you we've all seen that one. You know, it's a powerful movie. But for some odd reason, she couldn't do it. Again, this was like a multi-generational event. You know, there was new students, there were mothers with their children, all sharing, and with stories that they heard from their grandparents or their great grandparents. So there's a lot of a beautiful healing involved, and she wanted me to make sure to bring up like the positive impacts of these boarding schools. So, and I'm like, what can we possibly think of that would be positive that come from these boarding schools? But really there was, she brought up that, we did learn to speak English and write English, which are some of our fundamental tools today. Even in Indian country, we have to walk in both worlds. You know what I mean? We have to learn our cultural aspects, and we have to learn this modern day stuff that we're living in. They learn trades, agricultural, sewing, cooking, weaving, whatever, that kind of a deal. They become bilingual, as we know. She pointed out that the Navajo code talkers, with that bilingual, the impact that they had on World War II, which was really cool. Higher education nowadays, right? So those impacts from the boarding school, the positive impacts, are what we see today, like with American Indian College Fund, all the stuff that they're doing, the higher education that we're offering our tribal members is great. So as an institution, educational institution on the reservation, it's great that we can share this stuff with the community, and there's it left a big impact for a while. It's something that we're going to bring up again. Obviously, we have this display. We have the ability to now that COVID's kind of relaxed a little bit. We do plan on bringing more people in and showing this again, which is cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate you sharing the work that White Earth did on this project. And I saw in the chat, someone had asked where they can get more information about boarding schools, and some of the things that you mentioned, in addition to some of our tribal colleges and universities that have done research and provide centers where you can do investigative work. There is more of that information online where you can do research on ancestors and your grandparents or other ancestors who may have attended. So more of that does exist, and there's quite a few schools that have come about out of the boarding schools that were originally in place. Haskell Indian Nations Universities, one of our tribal colleges that we work closely with in Kansas. They have a cultural center and museum about the boarding school that used to exist there. And out of these institutions, there have been some positivity, even though we've faced tremendous trauma, and death at the hands of those institutions for many, many years. Thank you so much, Jim, and I'll ask you to stay on if you will as a panelist.
Yep.
I'd like to ask Christine, we've kind of finished talking about the scholarship opportunity. Right before we get into questions, we'll get into questions in just a minute. I wanted Christine to share specifically about the fellowship, because I know that it's not set exactly how the application for that will be, but if you could talk just a little bit about the fellowship specifically as well, and then we'll get into the questions about the scholarship.
Yeah, I have a lot of things I want to say. Thanks, David. Jim, that was great. I loved seeing that, and I'm sorry I didn't get to come see it in person, but hopefully someday I can. So I see some questions in the chat that I know you probably want me to do Q&A at the end, but I just want to answer them before I forget. Okay, so where can you find information about your ancestors that went to boarding school? You need to know which boarding school they went to. You either have to ask people in your family where somebody went to boarding school, but once you find out the boarding school, then you should be able to find the records, hopefully. Now, here's the thing. At the Boarding School Healing Coalition, we're working on a few different things. One is building a national Indian boarding school digital archive. So taking those records that you might usually have to travel to a federal records repository to view the records, taking those and digitizing them and making them available online. So for example, right now, Carlisle Indian School has the records digitized online through Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We're partnering with them to integrate those records into our national digital archive. So our digital archive will eventually have all the boarding schools, but there were 367 boarding schools in the US, and we've only found the location of the records for about 40% of those schools. So we're still looking for the rest. That relates to the other initiative we have going, which is to educate people and say why we need a Truth and Healing Commission on Indian boarding schools. So last fall, former Congresswoman Deborah Hallen introduced a bill for a Truth and Healing Commission on Indian boarding schools, and we were able to help inform that bill. We're hoping that this bill will get introduced again. We're working on those efforts currently, right? So we need a commission, we need a truth-telling process, we need to know where the records are. So in terms of you finding your family's story, your best source is going to be your relatives. So back to the slide that David was sharing about the questions, that if you click that you're a descendant, and then you'll get the prompt to fill out the essay questions to submit your essay. I just want to caution everyone that, you know, like Jim was saying, you know, some positive things came out of boarding school. I've talked to elders who said they met their spouse at boarding school, or they made lifelong friends, and, you know, they go to reunions. And so there are a lot of positive stories, but there are also a lot of really traumatic memories and stories that come up. And so what I did was I just put in the chat, on our website, we do have self-care and trauma resources in a document. And we created this document as part of a study that we're doing on Indian child removal. So if children were removed either through boarding school experience, foster care, or adoption, we're looking at all of the different ways our children were targeted for removal and what the impacts were and how people are healing from it. So we went through an IRB process with the University of Minnesota, and we had to develop this resource for people who might feel triggered when taking the survey and answering questions and thinking about these memories, these difficult memories. And so this is a resource that you can use both for yourself, because listening to those stories from your relatives might produce some feelings in yourself. But this is also a resource that you can use for your relative if they start feeling really upset and maybe having some residual feelings after they tell their story. So we try to have it balanced between Western science and Western medicine and what they would say, like, you know, go to a counselor or whatever, and what you know, and the resources that you have available in your tribe, from your community, in your cultural practices and your traditional medicines. Okay, so just want to remind everybody and caution you that this, but that's also why we're doing this, right? Because my great-grandfather went to Carlisle, and I didn't even know that. I was literally working for the Boarding School Healing Coalition before talking to a family member about my grandfather's boarding school experience, and then found out my great-grandfather also went to boarding school. And so we need to be having these conversations in our families, and we want our younger generations to know the family histories, because impacts us, and we're carrying that with us, whether we know it or not. Another question that was asked was about eligibility in terms of if you went to a boarding school. So at the Boarding School Healing Coalition, we talk about boarding schools as the historical assimilative model. We do know that there's 70 some Indian boarding schools that are still open today. Not all of them are still boarding. Some of them are just day schools. But those are not the schools we're talking about, because with the self-determination era, you know, we had the Indian Religious Freedom Act and the American Indian Education Act and the American Indian Language Revitalization. Basically all our rights that should have been protected in the beginning were, you know, enacted. And so the boarding schools that are open today now promote language and culture rather than prohibit it. So those aren't necessarily the boarding schools that we're focusing on. We're focused on if you went to boarding school as recent as like the 70s, maybe possibly the 80s, some schools were still prohibiting language and culture. But if you went, you know, more recent than that, then you probably had a very different type of experience. You can still submit an essay, but it's not exactly what we're focusing on. You would have to tie that somehow to the historical assimilative model of boarding schools. Oh, the fellowship. So, so you can go to our website, and I'll just actually, I guess I can share my screen too here. Okay, so if you go to our website, boardingschoolhealing.org, it's right here on the home page. The Boarding School Healing Scholarship and Fellowship page. It gives you a little introduction, talks about the scholarship program, which we're so excited to be partnering with the American Indian College Fund. Thank you. And having them support the administration of the actual scholarship program. Then there's the link, of course, to the Full Circle Scholarship application. And then the fellowship program is below that. So that application is actually on our website. So there's a button down at the bottom that says apply now. Eligibility is US citizen, member or descendant of a state or federally recognized tribe, so same as, and the 2.0 grade point average, and enrolled as a full-time student. So same for the other eligibility. What you'll need is some additional information. We want to, you know, make sure that you actually are enrolled. I think this probably is part of their application process too over at the College Fund, where, you know, you have to send us some proof of things. And then the fellowship is a 2-year fellowship, and it's $5,000. So it'll be $2,500 each year. We would like to have you submit quarterly blogs on, you know, the research that you're doing, and then come and present at our annual conference once your research is done. So in the application, you'll see that there is a prompt for giving us your research proposal in 2,000, at least 2,000 words, but no more than 3,000 words. Explain your research, what you're investigating, your approach to the research, and what your intended outcomes are. So it's really vague because we don't want to limit people. So basically, if you're researching anything that has to do with the historical assimilative model of boarding schools, then that's going to qualify. So was I not sharing my screen?
No, it wasn't shared, but but I posted a link to the page about the scholarships and fellowships.
Yeah, I clicked share, and then there was one more button. You know, it always asks you, like, check, like, are you sure you want to share your screen? And I just didn't hit the second button. So I'm all scrolling through my page and telling you, like, you can see it. So here's our home page, boardingschoolhealing.org. It's right here on the home page. You click here, and you will see the scholarship program and then the fellowship program. And down at the bottom is apply now. And then you'll submit all your information, including uploading your research proposal and some letters of recommendation and all of that good stuff.
And they can contact you directly if they have additional questions beyond the application, correct?
Yes, there's a contact form on our website. Yes.
Okay. Boardingschoolhealing.org is the main page, and we put that several times into the chat, but let's go ahead and start answering some of your questions. We appreciate all of you who spent the last 30 some minutes with us. But there were a couple that I saw that were real easy to answer. One, will this presentation be shared? Yes, it will. We'll have a recording of this and we'll send this out to everyone who registered for the event. And a recording will also be up on the Full Circle Scholarship page as well. Also, Christine can talk about this a little bit too. There were several questions about proof or if there's any documentation or anything that needs to be submitted. We're not requesting that as a part of your submission as a survivor. As I mentioned before, everyone's going to have a different amount of information about specifically their ancestors and their experience. So we're not requesting that you provide any type of historical record or anything of that nature that shows that your ancestors were a part of that. And then in addition to that, really the only requirements beyond that are just the normal Full Circle scholarship requirements. Like I had said, the application is open through May 31st, and that's for the next school year, the 2021-2022 school year. One person had asked about summer funding. Unfortunately, we don't provide summer funding with our scholarship applications, but it would be for the next school year. I want to go through a few. Did you see any other specific in the chat, Christine, that you wanted to call out?
Yeah, it seems like, a lot of people are really questioning like the eligibility. I would say, if you think you qualify, then click the button and submit your essay. Make your case, right? So like if you have a relative who went to boarding school, just share their story. And to David's point about, providing proof, you don't have to go track down the historical record, but sharing the story is really, really the proof. And really the aim here is we want people to be having these conversations in their families. That's going to promote, the healing for everyone. And we just want you to share it with us and we want to hear about it. So that's what's going to win you the scholarship, is that story.
And another person asked about the number of opportunities. I forgot to mention this before. There's going to be 5 funded opportunities each year at $3,000. So that is what is available per year for this opportunity. We'll continue beyond just this year, which is a really great support for those descendants who are applying. And one of the reasons that we've done this, we could have been more restrictive as far as the application process, but we really want to, like Christine said, open this up to have this be a period of exploration and kind of talking about our family experiences in our communities. And so we don't want to put a lot of restrictions and guidelines on what that application, that essay is going to look like and what your specific experience is going to look like for you and your family. So please share with us, please make that be a part of it. Another question I had saw was for someone maybe who's already submitted the Full Circle application. You can go back, like I said, in your profile and add this information. The main thing is when we get to that May 31st deadline, that's when we start reviewing our applications for the Full Circle Scholarship. And that's when we'll also look at the profile to see those who would qualify for these specific descendant funds. So be sure that you have that information in as early as you can, even if you've already submitted your Full Circle application, because when we start to review those, when we send those out to readers and we look at that at an administrative level, that's going to be really important that it's in there by that time. So if you've already submitted, you can go back in your profile and change that for the Full Circle application. I was trying to see if there were any other questions. I did have one. There was one about what if your parents or grandparents went to a Canadian boarding school? I think that also applies as long as you are meeting the requirements for the Full Circle, which means that you're a U.S. citizen, you're a member of a state or federally recognized tribe here in the U.S., and you're attending a school in the U.S. That is completely acceptable to share that experience as well too as a form of eligibility. Trying to see if there's anything. If says if we are awarded, is the money sent directly to the student or does it go to financial aid? The way that we award our scholarships, it does go to the institutions. So when we award that, and you can also find some of that information in the Full Circle FAQs and application tips as well. Is this open to First Nation Native students too? Unfortunately, this is only for our normal eligibility for Full Circle Scholarship, which is for US citizens and those who are members of state and federally recognized tribes. So,
David, if I could interject,
yeah,
the
please.
question about, you know, if your grandparents went to a Canadian boarding school, I would add that, you know, because our focus is here in the United States. Canada had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and, you know, great for them. There's, you know, still issues in that country, but we haven't even had that acknowledgement here in the US. So we are focused on trying to get something like a truth commission here in the United States. So if you are going to talk about your ancestors who went to a Canadian residential school, you're going to have to somehow bridge that into, you know, the US Indian boarding school history, and talk about the need for, you know, the truth to come out in this country. The other thing is, the question about, you know, does the money for the scholarship go directly to financial aid? Yes, that's going through American Indian College Fund, and that's how they work it. On the fellowship side, we are going to make those awards directly to the student rather than to the institution to support the actual research projects. So that's the difference in the scholarship versus the fellowship.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Christine. And another thing that I will call out too, when we mentioned this, the connection to our tribal colleges and universities that we work with, is the sensitivity, the cultural relevance, and really the family support that those institutions offer. I know that Jim, working as a cultural coordinator at White Earth, can talk about that a little bit too, but these institutions provide something that you will not find at a normal mainstream or traditional university. And we recognize that. We support those institutions with scholarships, but then with other types of support. And if you apply for the Full Circle Scholarship, you are also automatically applying for additional funds, which are the Tribal College and University scholarships that the College Fund also provides funds for. So if you are on a reservation or near a reservation and one of these schools is near you, they have really fantastic programs. Do you want to share anything, Jim, specifically about, you know, like how White Earth approaches, you know, the students that they work with?
As far as what goes, is like the money that the scholarships that we're getting and how we apply them?
Just as an institution, how your student experience kind of contrasts with, you know, a more traditional college experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to ingrain like the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe value system in everything that we do at the college, right? You walk into our drum hall and you'll see there's 7 grandfather teachings, right? They're all up on the wall, you know, all the way around. We offer our Ojibwe language courses. I teach that, and I suppose all the extracurricular things that we do, like on campus. Okay, we made like maple syrup, whatever, you know. We do the wild rice thing, you know, in the fall, where we're processing the wild rice right out here on campus, and we're filleting fish, and, you know, just stuff that you wouldn't be able to do and we're learning how to make hand drums, things like that, you know. And of course, the stuff at the boarding school, you know, stuff that really impacts our community, and we are able to reach out to the community and, you know, ask what they want to learn, ask what they, you know, want to share. And yeah, we are embedded right into our community here, which is great, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what, you know, the experience is it's different, it's culturally informed, and the institutions are not huge, they're not thousands and thousands of students. You get to know your professors, you get to know the financial aid people, all those types of things. It is a very supportive and culturally supportive experience that you find there. And like I said, some of those institutions have additional resources specifically around boarding schools. I look at Haskell Indian Nations and some of the other schools too that were actually connected to institutions that were previous boarding schools. So I didn't see any other specific questions about that I thought that we could answer in this time. Again, I want to encourage you to reach out to myself or to Christine if you have any specific questions that aren't answered in this recording or in this event. Please go to the website and explore a little bit more. Most of the questions that you have are probably more specifically about the Full Circle Scholarship, which there's tons of resources, videos, FAQs, and things of that nature. But as we finish up our time, I do want to ask you to complete a survey for us if you can. I'm going to post that into the chat right now. Put that in there. There you go. We have a Survey Monkey. We'd really appreciate your quick feedback. It'll take you literally like a minute to fill out the survey, but just to let us know how we've done in presenting this information about this new opportunity with the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. I want to thank you for coming to attend this. I would encourage you to share this opportunity with as many people that you know, especially those that specifically may have a connection with boarding schools and their families and their communities, because that is the purpose of this funding, is to raise awareness, to promote education, to really enable healing on another level by supporting those students that can hopefully share their experiences, bring those experiences into the places that they want to be in their education and career journeys. That representation, that storytelling, all the things that we want to accomplish throughout society, that has to start someplace. And the College Fund is really appreciative that the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition has selected us to help them with this. So I don't have any other comments. Christine, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, just want to say likewise, Chi-miigwech, for helping us administer this program. I'm just so excited. Just really can't wait to see the applications come in, to read the stories, and to award some students and help them on their journey.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you everyone who attended. Like I said, we'll be sending out a recording of this probably within the next day or two. And the information will be, of course, on the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition website and our website as well. And feel free to reach out to us via our websites or other communication channels if you have specific questions. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and best wishes to you with your applications. Bye.